What's up, everyone? Excuse me. What's up, guys? In this video, we are going to introduce you to using Final Cut Pro. This is the video editing app that's available only on Macs. So if you're just getting started, I highly suggest you edit with Final Cut Pro, especially if you've been using or if you're planning to use Mac OS environment. I highly suggest you using Final Cut Pro because that's by far the best app that has a ton of features, that's applicable for every situation, that's best at video editing. So before we start, there are a few things that we need to make sure that we do. First is that we need to rearrange, we need to organize our media. So what I like to do is first, I like to create a folder on a specific location, whether it's a hard drive or it's a desktop or any external storage, so that whenever you need to move your project from one computer to another, now that's the best way you can do it, because you need to make sure that you store all the files that are associated with the specific particular project inside that particular location. So it's highly suggested that you use an external storage for your video editing content. So for the sake of this example, I have this video that I recently recorded. Now this is basically showing how I set up my Mac, what I do, what are the best apps, what are the best settings that will drastically improve the productivity. Now this is the file that I decided to start with editing. So as I've said, what I like to do first is create a folder. Now again, as I've said, I'm doing this on my desktop. Let's create a folder. Now Final, I like to use abbreviations: Final Cut Pro, Projects, and no spaces. That's just a practice from my programming. And let's open this directory and create an internal directory, because in the future you'll have a whole bunch of projects. You'll have a project for computer tutorials, you might have projects for weddings, and etc. So you need to make sure that you have a specific folder for a specific project. Now what I like to do is I have some keyboard shortcuts that I remember. One of the common things that I common do, and one of the useful keyboard shortcut is if you hold down the command key and click 1, you can change the view. And I'm viewing this content as a grid right now. If I keep holding down the command and click 2, I'll get the list view. And if I'll click 3, I'll get this view, etc. So this one is best for viewing gallery. And what I like to do basically is keeping the list view. So let's create a particular name for this particular project. Now this one is going to be how I set up. You can leave spaces if you want, it's just my practice. But for this directory, I'll keep spaces. How would I set up my Mac? Okay, so let's move this file into this directory, and we're going to go over every step. I always wondered what that thing was. It's a thumbnail of the screenshot that I've done just a couple of minutes ago. Okay, so it's now time to launch Final Cut Pro. But before you do, as you can see, we have this directory that's ready to go, and if you're planning to have multiple video files in here, you can create a subdirectory like videos and move all the video files into this directory. Maybe you have a couple of cameramen and you want to have each directory for each cameraman, and that's the way you do this. You can just name these folders like so, cameraman 1, or just a camera 1 or camera 2, and move the according content to these directories. But I'm not going to do that since I only have just one file. So if you have some music files, you can just move these to specific directories like projects. Now these are the types that I've used on Premiere Pro, but basically the organizing tips pretty much work for every video editing environment. So I think we're pretty much ready to go, and the last folder that I'll create is miscellaneous. Whenever I have a specific file of a specific format, I'll move that file into this folder. So let's now launch Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro. Okay, so let's wait for the Final Cut Pro to appear. And just so you know, I'm using the MacBook Pro from 2015. So in case if it's really slowing down, this is the MacBook that I've used just for the last 3 years, I guess. And let's see what we have. And also I'm using an external monitor for this specific tutorial, and the monitor that I'm using is LG, which is 1080p. Okay, as you can see, this is just one chunk, one big file that I moved to my timeline. And one of the specific shortcuts that I set up on Final Cut Pro, and that are universal as far as experts say, they are universal, and I tried myself, and those keyboard shortcuts are, if you've used Premiere Pro, you're probably familiar with one of the most useful keyboard shortcuts like Q, which cut the beginning part of the video, and W, which trims the rest of the video. And what I did was, let me show you just quickly. And I'm not sure if this is the right name for the action, so let's just probably use the keyboard shortcut instead. So as we can see, when we click the W key, and we can see that, just give me a second, editing. So what Q does is, basically, I'm not sure what are the basic actions for those keyboard shortcuts, but I know what most common people use. So W is pretty much used to be the keyboard for the trimming the rest, the last part of the video, and trim. Let's see if we can find the right word. So this is where we are, and this is what I was looking for actually. So whenever you get started, I'll talk more about the most common keyboard shortcuts that you can set up in later parts of the video, but just so that we're on the same spot, let's assign the keyboard shortcut to cut the beginning part of the video just as we did on Premiere Pro, if you're familiar. And let's here. Now, the default keyboard shortcut for this action is, as you can see, the opening square bracket, but I'm going to remove it and click Q so that we have universal keyboards, at least on Premiere Pro and Final Cut Pro. So trim is the beginning part of the video, and the end, the keyboard shortcut for cutting the end of the video will not be W, if you thought, but that's the case on Premiere Pro. But what I use basically is the E key. So I'll assign the E key so that the Q key would trim the beginning part and E would trim the rest part of the video. But the W key will just cut the video in half in between. So let's try looking for the key. Now, as you can see, that's the blade key, but we're not interested in that, and we're not interested in cut as well. So let's see if we have the trim. Obviously we'll talk more about that later. Just to save time, I'll save my keyboard shortcuts, and you can create your own keyboard shortcut schema on here, but I've already created one, so I'm good to go. Just to demonstrate some of the common actions in Final Cut Pro, again, you can see when I hover over the file inside the timeline as well as inside the project view, you can see the content of this specific video that I'm hovering on, and you can also hear it, but the audio configuration has not been properly adjusted yet. And you can see clearly the content, and I can drastically see the change compared to Premiere Pro. Now Premiere Pro does struggles rendering the content basically. Just think of it, this is the MacBook that's almost 7 or 8 years old, but it does its job. It renders its content. So just straight to the job. And one of the common keyboard shortcut that I've always specified is the zoom in and zoom out. So if I click zoom in, you can see that I've assigned 1 key to zoom out and 2 key to zoom in, so that I don't have to move my left hand that I'm always keeping on the left side of the keyboard, so that I don't have to move it to the right side of the keyboard. My hand is always busy with the touchpad and some of the right hand side keyboard shortcuts, but I'm always keeping my left hand on the left side of the keyboard. So if I want to cut the beginning part of the video, so this is what I wanted basically. I wanted to leave this part, but I want to cut this part because I don't want to be showing my notes, because the Notion app has everything that I'm doing in this video, but I don't want to show it. So if I want to cut this part, I can just cut it in half, as you can see. Again, you can see these tools that we have. You can see these tools. If I use the blade tool, I can just make a cut. I don't want to show the again, I don't want to show the Notion notes. I can just, whenever I'm done with this action, I just make a cut here. So notice the next time when I'm showing something, I'll wait while the Notion app closes, and I'll just use the Q key that I've just assigned a couple of seconds ago, which trims the beginning part of the video. Okay, so as you can see, as soon as this action completes, the second action starts. And what I'm showing, and if you were to create a video tutorial like this, I'm sure you would start with creating some titles in between, you know, so that people who watch videos would know exactly what you're trying to show. And now these keyboard shortcuts that are active on my Mac. This is actually another Mac that I'm using, and in fact, I keep forgetting some of the keys myself. And if you want to trim the rest part of the video, as you can see, I want to cut this part, but before I do, I want to make a cut in here. So for that, I'll use again. I'm sorry for not being a professional on this, but I'm always learning, improving, and I try to make these videos as good as I possibly can. And now, if I want to cut this part, again, let me take the blade tool again, and here let me make a cut. And as you can see, as soon as this one slides down, I make a cut, but I want to cut out this part, the rest part of this video. So as soon as the mouse stops, I want to make a cut. Okay, that the keyboard shortcut for cutting the end of the video is E, as you can see. Now I know that this has taken so much time, but I'll definitely continue doing this video. So please subscribe to my channel. Put something in the comment section if you have a question, if you have a suggestion that I need to know, and like this video, subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching this video, and see you next time.